The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. The element of nature is masterfully handled in this poem to bring out the contrasting forces of hope and despair. The poem also captures a moment of transition, whether it pertains to that of the Victorian age, the personal life of the poet himself, or the transition from the 19th to the 20th century. The poem begins on a bleak note against the backdrop of a desolate and dismal winter landscape at dusk. The poet describes in lyrical, descriptive detail the dying of the old world at the turn of the century. He finds little cause for hope or joy around him. Suddenly he hears the song of a songbird, which spreads warmth and hope into the earlier desolate and dead landscape. The poet finds his spirits lifting, and with it the realization that there is still hope and joy in the world. Stanza 1. The poet, in a somber and reflective mood, was leaning on a gate that led to the woodland or forest, where frost, which has been personified, had covered the landscape with a grey, ghost-like appearance. The gate here is suggestive of a new place and a new beginning, and the act of leaning suggests that the speaker is tired and dejected. It is dusk, and the poet is viewing a barren landscape on a wintry, frosty evening. The frost has made this landscape spectre grey, that is, as grey as a ghost, or with a ghost-like appearance. This shows nature as a relentless force, and when the world turns away from the sun, it brings cold and darkness. The word dregs means the leftover bits or remnants of something. Here, the dregs refer to the end of the day and the setting of the sun. As the day draws to a close, its eye, that is the sun, weakens and makes the twilight desolate. The poet has used a simile to compare the tangled bind stems to strings of broken lyres. Bind stems are the stems of shrubs, and a lyre is a stringed musical instrument, somewhat similar to a harp. The bare stems of the shrubs, sharply outlined against the sky, remind the speaker of strings of an old, broken musical instrument. The imagery of a broken lyre is symbolic not only of complete silence, but also complete ceasing of creative activity. The deathly silence of the winter landscape is heightened by the simile of the strings of a broken lyre, which can no longer make any music and has been rendered silent by death like winter. On this desolate winter evening, all mankind who lived nearby have long since sought the refuge and warmth of their homes. The poet alone is leaning on the coppice gate and viewing the desolate winter landscape. A contrast has been drawn between the barren outdoors and the warm and inviting household fires. Stanza 2. The second stanza of the poem intensifies the speaker's perception of the gloomy winter landscape in a series of metaphors that are linked to death. The first metaphor refers to the sharp outlines of the winter landscape, which are stark and appear like the sharp features of a corpse, in this case, the corpse of the dying 19th century. The cloudy sky seems like the century's tomb, and the winter wind its death song or death lament. Lines 13 and 14 refer to the seeds of spring, which are now shrunken, hard, and dry. In other words, they're shriveled and dry and dead. This depicts how the seeds, reduce in size, become hard and dry during the winter season. The seed, which is shrunken and shriveled, represents life and regeneration. It seemed to the poet that every spirit or every living being upon earth was as fervorless or as dispirited as he was. Thus the poem does not merely present the perception and feelings of one person, but is representative of the mood of an age. In the opening stanzas, the poet has dealt with the end of the day, as it is dusk and in the gathering gloom night is about to fall. He's also dealt with the end of the year, as it is winter, so that marks the end of the year. And the third end is the end of the century. The century's corpse refers to the 19th century, which is drawing to a close. To be continued in part 2.